Well, welcome back to math. Today we're going to talk about quadrilaterals. Quadrilaterals. What does quad mean? Well, I hope you just said four. And then what is laterals? Sides. Right? So this means four sides. Now, let's draw one. What would this be? Well, this would be four-sided, right? Because if you look, we've got one side, two sides, three sides, four sides. What's going to be our angle from here all the way around? How many degrees? 360 degrees. Means to go all the way around. Circles are 360 degrees. Quadrilaterals are 360 degrees. But if we were talking about triangles, then we would be talking about what? Triangles are 180 degrees. But notice, if I have two triangles, I have 180 degrees over here and 180 degrees over here. And if I add those together, boom, I get 360 degrees. See that? All right, so we're working with quadra. Quadra means four, yeah. And lateral means sides. So we're talking about four sides. Also notice there are also what? There are one angle, two angles, three angles, four angles. So it also has four angles, okay? So it has four angles. So quadrilaterals are four-sided and they have four angles, as we've known for quite some time. We usually call it a square or a rectangle because those seem to be the main kind of shapes. We've known this one for a long time, haven't we? Now pretend with me that these are all three on each side, okay? We can make them 3 inches, so I'm going to give it the inches sign. This is called what? It's called a square. Now, is a square an equilateral? I mean a quadrilateral, sorry. Well, yes, it is a quadrilateral. Why quadra? Because it has four sides. One side, two sides, three sides, four sides. It also has four angles, as you can tell. Each one of these angles is what? Or supposed to be what, I should say. Each one of these is going to be 90 degrees because it's a square. 90 degrees. You have to have it as 90 degrees to make it a square. Otherwise it wouldn't be square. Four 90-degree angles. And if we added those all up, we would have 360 degrees. Now something that looks kind of like a square, but maybe it's a little longer. This is a rectangle. What's a rectangle? It means that two of the sides are longer than the other two. Rectangle has two opposite sides of the same length. So we have a 4 is the same length as this 4, 2. So if you notice, the opposite sides are the same length. Okay, so that makes it a rectangle. Notice one other thing about the rectangle. It's got 90-degree angles, doesn't it? So they're each 90 degrees, and 90 degrees times 4 is what? Well, if you said 360 degrees, you have done a good job. Now, if you notice, the shape on the bottom looks like what? It looks like a rectangle, doesn't it? Well, it is kind of like it. It's the exact same thing as our rectangle, isn't it? What's the difference, though? It's leaning, isn't it? It's a leaning rectangle, okay? Okay, so we have a parallelogram. What does that mean? Parallelogram is a rectangle that's leaning. It's the old leaning rectangle. Two of our sides, there are four on this side. Other two sides are opposing sides here, two. So we have four on the top and the bottom and two on the sides. But if you notice, they're not at a right angle. It means they are not 90 degrees. Okay, so if you see, we have one of these angles is 100 degrees. You see that? What do you think this angle is right down here? Well, if this is 100 degrees here, then this is also has to be 100 degrees. If this one is 80 over on this side, what do you think it is on the opposite side? Yeah, it has to be 80. If this one's 100 degrees, then this one down here has to be 100 degrees. If this one is 80 degrees here, then that means the diagonal one from it here has to be 80 degrees. Let's talk about a couple of other types of shapes. Quadrilaterals. Quadra meaning quad, meaning four, laterals meaning sides. So we're talking about four-sided objects. So we're talking about four-sided objects. It's a square, isn't it? But we don't call it a square because why? Yeah, it's leaning. So if you have a square that is leaning, we have a special name for it. We call it a rhombus. Okay, now a rhombus is a square that's leaning. Okay, all the sides are the same distance. So these are 3 centimeter sides. Just like our square could have a 3 centimeter sides too. The difference is the square has a 90 degrees on the corners, right? On a rhombus, the degrees can vary, but they're not 90. We do know that. What's this angle gonna be? I hope you were listening to the last one, remember? The diagonal one is the same. So this is 110 degrees. And then what's this other one opposed that one down here? Well, if you said 70, good job. So a rhombus is just like a square that's leaning. And a parallelogram is a rectangle that's leaning, okay? So, because they have, the square and the rhombus have equal sides, you're always going to have the same angle degree. And in the parallelogram is the same as a rectangle, except it's leaning. So these are our two types of shapes that are the same as like the square, but it's leaning and it's called a rhombus. And the rectangle that's leaning is called a parallelogram, okay? So I hope that that helps you remember those. I'm gonna give you another different kind of quadrilateral, and this one's called a trapezoid. Now the trapezoid is kind of an easy one to remember because it looks like a trap. If we were walking into this, do you notice we would get trapped in an area? So if you notice, it's wide here, but it's smaller here, okay? So that's what I like to think of as a trap or a trapezoid, okay? Now what is a trapezoid? Well, a trapezoid means that it has one pair of lines. They are parallel. So it has one set of parallel lines. Now if you notice, I could even have something that looks like this. What shape is that? Well, that's a trapezoid as well. If I was walking in, I'd get trapped here in the corner, wouldn't I? What does a trapezoid have to have? It has to have one set of parallel lines. Here's our set of parallel lines. You see that? What do you think the degrees are on these two? Well, these are 90 degrees. So this is 90 and 90, we got 180 right there. Let's say that's a 40-degree angle. What would the other one be? Well, you know that 90 and 90 is what? We got 180 here, and we need another what? We need another 180 over on this side. So we got 40, right? 40 degrees. 40 plus what is going to be 180. What's our question mark side going to be? You can take the 40 and you can subtract it, from that. And that's going to leave you with 140. That equals 140 degrees. Why? Because they both have to add up to be 360 degrees. Why? Because it's a quadrilateral. Quadra meaning four, lateral sides. And what kind of shape is that? That is a trapezoid. It's a quadrilateral, and our missing angle was 140 degrees. Pretty easy to do, isn't it? Well, just kind of keep working with this. Go over it again if you need to. You need to memorize all these shapes. We have your trapezoid, which means that we have two sides that are parallel, but it kind of goes into a trap. Then we have the rhombus. The rhombus is a leaning square. We have your parallelogram. A parallelogram is a leaning rectangle. And a quadrilateral, quadra meaning four, lateral sides, four-sided. I love math.